always promise the sports mix on a Friday. Chief, I'll start with you since you're in a fun mood. What would make you feel different about Jalen Tolbert?
In terms, like, before this, like, heading into the season, like, what could make me confident?
What would make you feel
at the end of the season?
Just what would make you feel different about Jalen Tolbert?
I don't know. I mean, honestly, I will be knee jerk, and if he starts making baller plays in training camp, I'm going to start getting infatuated. But my expectations are so dang low. I mean, if he could just be, if he could be an average number 4 receiver, like if he could just be a guy that is active and can catch the ball and not just be like last year, he couldn't even get on the field.
Yeah.
So, but my expectations are super low for him. So I just want to see him active, and can I depend on him to be a run-of-the-mill number 4 wide receiver? I don't think that's too much to ask of a third-round pick.
Gavin?
I'll get excited if you give me like the first 2 weeks of training camp where he's a standout about every other day. So that should be about 10 practices. Give me 5 standout practices before the first preseason game. And then in those first couple of weeks, give me the 7 catches for 100 yards. You know, a couple of those things. Now it can start to be optimistic, but I won't like see that there's validation towards it until we're into the regular season and I see him with like a 5 catch for 65-yard type of game. But it's really going to take for the regular season to happen. But I mean, he played so bad that just having an exciting training camp right now would get me moving.
Yeah, I mean, even could he dominate a preseason game?
Yeah.
Could he go out there and be like, okay, he looks like, he's playing in the third quarter because he's still earning things, but he's starting to show out against these low-level guys, and he's catching touchdowns, and he's the guy on third down, and he's making plays. Then it's like, okay, we can see that there is something in there.
Yeah, I talked to somebody over there about that. They clearly want him to succeed. They really believe that he can succeed. And, they were thinking like one of the biggest factors or problems last year is he didn't know what he was doing.
Yeah.
He just didn't know what he was doing. And I asked the question about was missing OTAs and mini camps. He said, oh, no, that definitely had something to do with it. But, here we are. We're falling in love with Dennis Houston, and we're falling in love with Dennis Houston because Dennis Houston was lining up in the right spot and being where he's supposed to be. He's doing everything better than Tolbert, but Tolbert's a better player. If Tolbert would have performed like Houston, knowing where he needed to be,
that was half the battle.
That was half the battle, and he lost that battle, and that set him behind last year. Gavin,
yeah,
if the Cowboys defense is top 3, this will be the reason why.
Because their defensive tackles become this immovable force in the middle of their defense, keeps their linebackers clean. I think what the edges in the secondary can do that's well established. If they can lock down the middle as well and make the offense much more predictable with how you have to attack them, then this defense will feast.
I am guaranteeing a dominant pass rush, and so if the secondary and especially the corners can be as locked down as as dominant at what they do as what the pass rush can be, then I think this defense goes to the moon, man. And they don't give up the big play, like in particular, don't give up the big play. I think that's really all it's going to take.
I kind of feel like that if Sam Williams shows that he could be just as good rushing the passer as Micah Parsons. I know that's saying a lot, but that they get something from Parsons and from Sam Williams.
Yeah, I mean,
that all of a sudden he turns into, whoa, wait a minute. That now they've got 2 big time legitimate pass rushers.
Yeah, because he's got the athletic profile to be that. When you say somebody comparing to Micah as a pass rusher, it sounds asinine.
Yeah,
and because it mostly is. But Sam Williams is a guy who the body of work, physically, athletically, like there's a chance he actually could be that.
I'll come back to you on this one, Chief. Mike McCarthy on the hot seat is a media-driven thought.
True or false? I'll say false.
Kind of a true or false, but I mean it in a way of that the Cowboys probably don't see him on the hot seat like the media does.
No, I think the Cowboys do see him on the hot seat. I think there's immense pressure to win. There is an expectation of winning with they feel like they've put together one of the best rosters in the sport, and in a lot of ways they have. And there is a guy that's on that staff that I think they'd love to be their head guy as well. And he at any moment could decide he wants to be a head coach again. And so that would bump Mike McCarthy out of there. I think he is. I think he is on the hot seat.
Gavin, Mike McCarthy on the hot seat is a media-driven thought, not a Cowboy thought.
It's true, Brian. Ain't no hot seat here for Mike McCarthy. Got him to the playoffs in back-to-back years. He does not show up Jerry Jones. He'll get annoyed. He'll get hella ticked at Jerry, but he still just kind of bites his cheek. So, I could see where you could say, hey, at the end of this, if you're not taking the next step, but you have to remember what the Cowboys are really in this for. It's to stay relevant. It's to make the playoffs. They're telling you with their actions they don't really need to win the Super Bowl. They just want to make the playoffs every year. Mike's delivering that. He's kept him healthy. He avoids controversy for the most part. Gives him a decent scapegoat every now and then by mismanaging a game. Cowboys, the Jones boys appreciate that. I think he helps them with the draft and team building in a way that they like as well. They're better team builders than they were under Garrett.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think this is a media-driven thing. I think Jerry and Steven are comfortable with Mike McCarthy.
Yeah, I think they like him a lot.
I think guys like myself and others are talking about, he's on the hot seat and all that. I think they really like Mike McCarthy.
I mean, you guys know that maybe he should be on the hot seat.
Yeah.
To me, you could look at it like, wow, look at everything, all the success you're having. Or you could also say, look at all the great teams you're wasting. And I think that's sort of a valid approach as well. If you're not getting out of the divisional round with all these great players, maybe it is on the coach.
They're on the heels of exercising great patience with Jason Garrett, and I don't know that they want to duplicate that if they don't get the winning that they want. And Dan Quinn, I think the Dan Quinn factor is a huge part of this.
I think you're right about that, though. I think they really do like Dan Quinn. One final thing real quick. One final answer here. Gavin, between 1 and 10, 10 being the highest, how important is this series against the Blue Jays this weekend? 10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest.
I hate to say it, but it's probably a 2.
You don't think it's important at all with the Blue Jays?
I don't. We're still pre-All-Star break. We could lose all these games and still be great in the second half of the season.
Yeah, sure. I would put it at a 6, because if you get smoked in this series, things could start to spiral on you a little bit.
I kind of feel like it's in about an 8 right now. I think they need to kind of find a way to not let. I think they need to win this series and get back on what they've been doing.
To hold your identity as a good team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.